Well, First Peter chapter 4, we the passage that we've looked at and thought about and I've talked about endlessly here has to do with your gifts and applying them into serving others for the sake of bringing honor and glory to Christ. And then Peter, get those guys mixed up. Peter shift he changes gears and he goes back to an idea that he's talked about before, an idea that kind of cuts against the grain of our culture. Even, I mean, it's going to sound critical, but I think it goes against the culture of the modern church, especially in America, where he talks about, well, in verse 12, First Peter chapter 4. Dear friends, realize I don't think he is just searching for a way to introduce a difficult topic. I really do think he considered these people dear and friends. Quick side note here. I've talked with several people in my demographic, and with a few exceptions, we have kind of discovered that the older we get, the more difficult it is to find friendship. Isn't there's a lot of reasons for that. Uh, One is I remember in my 30s. Well, growing up, I had more friends than I knew what to do with. Right, everybody was my friend. And then in college, of course, college is a period of time in your life that's very pivotal, very formative in so many ways, and friendships that you form there are in some ways defining in your life. And out of college and into ministry, and the colleagues of my age in ministry were my best friends. Uh, and and in my mid 30s, these friends were the closest of my friends. We were in a there was like six of us in this group. We were all youth ministers, and we got together every week. We'd brown bag it, bring in something to eat, or in those days we didn't have money to go buy anything. We'd bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a few potato chips with us from home, and we prayed with each other. We laughed with each other. We did Bible studies. We had this, and we were accountable. It was really sweet, but something happened. That's a period of time, and I don't think it's just in ministry in terms of career, when people begin to move around geographically. And that tight group of six guys dwindled down to where I think there were just two of us. And that was a very difficult period of time for me as a person. It was hard. And what had been easy earlier in my life, that was making and maintaining friendships, felt much more difficult. And the older I've gotten, the more difficult it seems it is to form friendships, and the fewer terrifically close friends I find myself having. Interesting. Now, why I wanted to say that, I suppose I just needed a cathartic moment of personal therapy, so thank you. I do think, though, sometimes we fail to realize that when we're in this family, God's family, the church, we're supposed to be friends too, right? You treat friends, real friends, differently than you do acquaintances. And real friends, we work from a somewhat different perspective. Well, anyway, dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. How did he know that in 2020, the middle of March, the world as a whole, no, not the world as a whole, but a lot of the world would be in a panic mode over a virus that we didn't know what to do about. That was deadly to many, and initially we feared would be deadly to many, many more. But as it has turned out, it's only deadly to about, well, it's under 1% of those in the world population. But it has thrown, and I probably shouldn't even have brought that up because it sounds like I'm, politically have chosen a side. You don't even know what side I'm on, and that's not the point. What I'm saying is we got caught by surprise, didn't we? In America, our economy had never been that robust. The everything seemed very good, and then boom, we got surprised. That's not uncommon. I mean, it happens all the time, and I wonder if, I don't know that Peter had any particular insight into, the far off future, 2040 some years ago. But, dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you. Why did this whole thing come? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons why we're in the situation we're in. And one of the reasons is, if I'm reading this correctly, one of the outcomes ought to be that we will find out our depth. We will discover our actual resiliency. We will somehow, it will become clear to us who we really are as people. Nothing demonstrates the bottom line character of any person like adversity, like trials, like suffering, like crisis. I have a way of, when things are going well, I'm pretty amenable. I mean, I'm fairly gregarious, and I can appear very level-headed. When crisis occurs, it's really hard for me to sustain that. See, that's the way stress always seeks weakness. Really. Wherever a weakness occurs, when stress comes, it will come forward. Emotionally, this is true. Physically, this is true. If you've got weak ankles and you start out on a 26.2 mile run in a marathon, guess what will first start? You put your body under stress, and guess what's going to cry out in pain first? Wherever you have a weakness, right? Which is why you train for these things. You do specific things to strengthen weaknesses. That is true in your business life. Whenever the stress of circumstances comes into your business and career world, your weaknesses are going to show. When things are going great, the facade can look super, but when the stress comes, when the crisis occurs, that's when you find out what was really there. Emotionally, this is absolutely the case. When stress comes into anyone's life, it will seek out your emotional weak spot. And that's where it will scream out. This is true spiritually. I can't think of a level of our lives in which this is not true, that stress seeks out weakness. So it shows us who we really are, and that usually is not, for most of us, that's not who we want to be, and it's sure not who we want to be seen to be. Peter writes, "Do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you." You're constantly, the idea of testing is it can be easily misunderstood. When I was a sophomore in high school, my dear sister encouraged me to take Latin. She had taken it, and I guess she did okay with it. But at that point in time, my intention was to go to Bible college and be a minister, right? And that would mean I'd need to take Greek, and she thought Latin would prepare me for that, and she's probably right. The Latin teacher at C.E. Donor High School in Stillwater, Oklahoma, was Miss Becker. Heavy on the miss. Miss Becker was old enough that I think she may have turned down an invitation to the prom from Caesar Augustus. I mean, she was ancient, feeble, and she wore these pop bottle bottom thick glasses, so that if she was looking at you, she was seeing the person over here, which my friend Steve McCroskey took full advantage of this, so that when Miss Becker was looking at him, he was opening his book at test time to find definitions for words, because he knew she wasn't going to see him when she was looking at him. It was weird stuff. And I, myself, well, two things. Probably the excuse I lean on the most is that foreign languages are difficult for me. I don't know whether it's neurological and then the other probably more significant issue is I hated studying for Latin, so I didn't very much, resulting in a D. When Miss Becker gave a test, she wanted me to flunk, because it was a delight to her to send back a D- or an F on a test page. Now maybe she didn't, but it sure felt like she did. Her point was, okay, Ellen Eisenbraun, she was, she scored off the charts on her ACT and went to medical school and became a doctor. She was brilliant. We knew it even in the 11th grade, 10th grade. Well, she would get an A, and that always made Miss Becker happy. But I don't think it hurt her a bit to give me a D. Okay, Miss Becker gave tests to prove how dumb I was, right? How poorly I had planned. And in our walk with Christ, we're going to be tested. The reason Jesus wants to give us a test is number one, he wants us to pass the test. But he also wants us to know we won't pass the test without his intervention, without his presence, his work, his grace in our lives. The test that's coming on us, the suffering, the trial, the circumstance that has come on us, and I mean in particular this COVID-19 thing, I can tell you one of the reasons it's come on is to test us. And then he goes on, you shouldn't be surprised at this. It's a fiery ordeal, all right. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their homes. And yes, people have lost their lives and the lives of people they love. But you shouldn't be surprised at it as though something strange were happening to you. Why? Because this is a very broken, fallen world. You can be surprised, but why would, it was an ambush. We weren't quite ready for it, and in that regard, it surprised us. But think bigger. Why would that surprise us? This is the kind of world we live in. It's frustrating. I wish it were different, but shouldn't surprise me. As though it was something strange that was happening to me. It feels strange, but when you look at the bigger picture, ever since Adam and Eve took the fruit, mankind has been broken, and as a result of that brokenness, there's a cascading effect of very, very negative effect. And this is the kind of thing that will happen in that kind of broken world. When we come back next time, we're going to talk about the response to this kind of upsetting and fiery ordeal. But for now, my time's up, so I'm going to close. I hope I get to see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.